Okay. Alrighty. If you do have questions that you want to have addressed at the end, feel free to type it into the chat window. I will definitely take time and I will stop the recording if you have some personal questions that you want to ask, if you feel open and you want to do that. Otherwise, you can always send me a message in school, and I'm excited to have you in the school community. There's going to be so much more. It's going to become much more robust. I have so much content as a generator in human design. And there's just so much that I want to offer to people, because I think that once you open up and you see all of this information, it's such a game changer in the most subtle and the most substantial ways. And that's one of the things that I hear all of the time is it feels very subtle, the shifts that are happening, but it's on such a deep identity level, and the transformation continues to ripple out in each key area of life. So let's get started today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, you can go ahead and type in the chat window if you can't see it, but I believe that this should be working. So everything that we're going to talk about today is how to update your internal operating system, how to help you remove the patterns that are driving your behaviors. So much of what we do, I feel like every time I talk to people, there's just this battle between what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and the results that you're creating in the world. So what would it feel like if you could, like you do any other software update on all of your tech devices, what if you could just help yourself get to the most optimal level running in the most functional and efficient kind of way? My goal and my hope for you by the end of this is that you can remove any judgment that you have about your patterning, about your thoughts, about your behaviors, about the results that you have, and instead really have a tool, even if it's just one tool. And I'm going to share a lot of information with you. So even if it were just one tool that you practice and you implement today and you kind of see the results. My daughter and I are listening to this book called Guided, and the chapter right now is all about earthing. And the invitation from the guy who created this earthing movement is just go outside, just spend 15 minutes with your feet in the grass, just feel what it feels like in your physiology. So that's my invitation for you as well, is try this on, see how it feels, and then see what kind of results you start creating in your life. All right. So why does this matter to you? If you're here, you are likely a founder, an entrepreneur, or a leader. And I want you to better understand what is the invisible force that's driving your results. So your results may look great. They may look like they're going up and down. They may be far away from where you would like them to be. Whatever it is that you're experiencing, I always invite people to understand that everything that's unfolding in your life is unfolding for you rather than happening to you, or definitely as opposed to happening against you. So actually recently, I've had a few clients reach out to me and they've had some really down days. They've in fact used the word disillusioned. And my reframe for that is we sometimes need to meet these thresholds of pain for us to flip the switch and move out of the comfort of being where we currently are to the discomfort of stepping into the new identity, who we want to be, doing what we want to do, and having what we want to have. It's easy to feel like, oh my gosh, I've tried all these things, they haven't worked. But I sent out an email today to all of my existing clients and my recently closed clients to ask, are you really? Because you're choosing in every moment if you are choosing to be stuck, or if you're choosing to make progress, if you're choosing to engage in a pattern or behavior, or you're choosing that new way of being that hasn't yet become just your natural mode of operating. You're always making a choice. And which choice are you making? And if I were to challenge you, how much are you actually stepping into that new pattern, that new behavior? We can say that we are, but if I were to ask you to truly track your day, to track all the thoughts that are happening in your head, and you're having over 80,000 thoughts in your head every single day, over 80% of them are the same as the day before. Those stats kind of vary here and there. But that's a predominant majority is trained behavior. And so if you were really to track that, to be really honest with yourself, what kind of inventory are you seeing? Are you seeing the past behaviors, or are you seeing yourself stepping into those future behaviors? So right now there's a loop that's running in your life. And it's that there's these unconscious beliefs. Even if you were to do the work like I'm always doing with clients, I do it on myself, there are still so many unconscious beliefs that are layered in there. So I may, when I do a breakthrough session, address one layer of it. There could be another thing that starts to open up now that this layer has been removed. It's a never-ending quest of personal growth and development. So there's all these unconscious beliefs that are happening within you right now. They are creating neurochemical responses in your brain and in your body. So you have the belief and the thought triggering a feeling in your body. And then what happens there? It creates an emotional state. The emotional state that you feel, whatever label that you put onto it, if you feel anxious, stressed, nervousness and excitement are two sides of the same coin. So you could label it either way. Whatever you label it, that emotional state is going to drive certain behaviors. And just think about it. Are your behaviors when you're excited versus when you're nervous, are they the same or are they different? So I want you to be very aware of what emotional state you're broadcasting out into the world. In a little bit, I'm going to bring in quantum physics. I've actually been listening to a lot of different audios and just the quantum computing and all of the possibilities that are opening up now. It's wild. But when you start to understand that what we used to know about science is very outdated and what we actually now know about science, it creates a whole new playing ground for you to start understanding that the more that you can align your internal state, the more that you're going to impact your three-dimensional world. You can see at the bottom of the screen that 90%, 95% of your daily behavior is driven by your unconscious. And I often say that in the battle between your conscious and your unconscious mind, which one is going to win? Guess which one? It's going to be your unconscious mind. So if you're not aware of what's even running the operating system, how can you even know how to update it? And if you're also not aware that it's constantly running on this loop, then how can you know how to step out of that loop? So a lot of the work that I do with clients is basically sticking a wedge into the strategy that you're currently running. I basically, put an obstacle in the loop. You can't run the loop anymore because it's now been disrupted. And I'd like for you to start thinking about in your daily patterning, your daily thoughts, your daily actions, how can you interject a wedge into what it is that you're doing? There's a client of mine who's a mom, and she was saying, when my daughter, starts to get in these tantrums or these moments, this is my response. And so now it's become a trained strategy. So my invitation for her was, what can you do to disrupt that strategy, which can look completely ridiculous at the time. And one of the things that I actually do with my daughter is literally, I can feel the tension start to rise between us, and I will just do lion's breath in the middle of it. I will literally stick out my tongue and be like, "Ow," and it has to disrupt whatever's happening. So then we usually start laughing, and then we have a moment to reset. That reset moment, that space between the trigger, the stimulus, and the response, that's where the magic happens. And so that's why I want you to start thinking about how can you put a wedge there. So the things that are happening in your life right now, you can probably identify certain examples of things that aren't really working. You could probably, if you've done personal growth and development work, if you're in therapy, all of these kinds of different things, you could probably identify what's underneath that that's creating the examples of things that you see in your life. Well, there's something even underneath that. That's what I call the greater problem. If you knew what that was, you could have addressed it by now. But because it's unconscious, it's hard for us to figure that out. It's why we get into those patterns. It's why we feel like we've tried everything and it's still not working, because it's unconscious. It's at the unconscious level. So again, a lot of the work that I do, not just sticking a wedge in the loops, but it's also to float what's unconscious to your conscious awareness. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can make the same choices if you want. They're just not going to run the same because now you have different data. You have different things in front of you. Do I still engage in behaviors that don't serve me? Sure, when I'm tired and I'm stressed and I have a very strong, it's like a steam locomotive that's just already has all this momentum behind it. And it just takes a little bit of time for that momentum to slow or for me to choose something else because this has been what's really familiar. Do I still engage in those behaviors sometimes? Yeah, but I can't do it unknowingly. I know what it is that I'm doing. I know I'm making that choice. And so it's less satisfying. It's less helpful. And so again, we're floating what's unconscious to your conscious awareness. Everything that I also do is at the identity level. You're going to, once I have sparked this in your awareness of identity level work, you may see, and because our phones are listening to us, you may even see things being served to you on social media now about identity level work. It's the biggest lever that you can pull when it comes to change work. Why? There's something called logical levels of change. If you shift who you believe that you are, it naturally trickles down into the beliefs that you have and your values. Your values drive your behaviors. The core values that you have of what you think are important, that drives your behavior at the unconscious level. So changing who you believe that you are is naturally going to influence your beliefs and your values, which will then naturally influence what you believe you can do, your defined capabilities, which will naturally then drive the behaviors, and it'll naturally impact your environment, your three-dimensional world. I also like to remind people that the three-dimensional world is the thing that takes the longest to change. Also, if you've done other types of change work, maybe you've tried to adjust the environment. Maybe you've, for people, this is an easy example, is you want to get healthier, you remove all the junk food from the environment, okay? But underneath it, that programming is still there. So if you're not addressing that, it's like pushing a boulder uphill. A lot of change work is trying to address the behaviors or trying to address the environment. What I do is I work at the unconscious level of who you believe that you are. So that's pulling the biggest lever for this trickle down cascading effect for you to see naturally things begin to change and shift and evolve. And it feels so much easier because it's at the core of who you are and who you believe that you are. So the next time that you start to think about, you're trying to fix a behavior or you're trying to shift your external three-dimensional world, that takes the longest to show up, because just think about it. Think about how many systems are at play, how many people are in the three-dimensional world. There are so many other factors at play. But if you can adjust your inner world, it will naturally start to trickle outward into your external world. So what's actually running the show? In NLP, people often ask me, what is NLP? It's the way that you process the world, neuro, your five senses, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. Linguistic, how you talk to yourself, how you encode your memories, how you talk and communicate to others in your life. And the programming, the strategies that you use to run your life. You have a strategy for every single thing that you do. Getting up in the morning, taking a shower, eating a meal, using a fork, all of it is a strategy. A lot of it has become unconscious. So for a lot of us, we forget that when we first start to do something, we have unconscious incompetence. We don't know what we don't know. Then we start to get better at it. We move to conscious incompetence. Okay, now I know what I don't know. From there, you get even better at it. It becomes conscious competence. Hey, now I'm pretty good and I know what I know. And then you become a master, which then becomes unconscious competence. When you become a master at things, this is driving a car, this is, all the rote things that we do, you've forgotten about the place that you started. And so for a lot of the work that I do, especially with founders who are trying to scale and grow a team, I find that one of the biggest challenges is I'm trying to explain this to someone else. Why can't this person get this? Because you're unconscious to what it is that you're doing. You're actually not articulating what it is that you think that you're doing. And so the other person isn't receiving the directions or the guidelines. And now there's just a bunch of friction all over the place. And so I'm helping you to figure out each step of the way, what's happening, and to, again, float what's unconscious to your conscious awareness and reflect the pattern back to you. This is kind of a slide that blows people's minds, because you realize if this is how my brain works, this is how everybody who I'm ever talking to works, from the stranger who's helping you to check out your groceries, to your child, to your partner, whatever it is. There's an external stimulus that's happening right now. You process it again through your five senses. Every single second, you're getting 2 to 11 million bits of information. You're flowing that into your brain. Your conscious mind can only take in 50 to 126 bits of the 2 to 11 million bits of information that's flowing to you. Where does the rest of that information go? It's going into your unconscious mind. Science continues to show this. You can study ophthalmology. It will show you all the data that your eyes are taking in. You don't know, you can't function as a person with all of that data all of the time. Just think about how overwhelmed it feels when you're on social media and then someone calls you and then you got to, do this other thing. You're multitasking. It's like that, times a bajillion. So All of that is data going somewhere. This is where also gut instinct and intuition can come from, is that, well, somehow, some way I have this information. I just haven't consciously figured out how to filter and parse it through. So somewhere I've gotten this information, and your unconscious mind has it all. So it's trying to serve it up to you and help you to move forward in your life, because your unconscious mind wants you to be healthy and whole. That's its whole job. Whatever is happening externally, you encode it with a picture in your brain. You make an internal representation. And that picture is encoded by your five senses. What you see, what you hear, what you feel, those are predominant how you're encoding the picture in your brain. That then influences your state of being. However you encode this picture, which is filtered through based on your previous lived experience, your values, your judgments, all of that, it's made a picture. So you're not actually experiencing reality. You're experiencing a picture in your head of reality and the meaning that you're giving it. The meaning that you give it influences your state of being, that emotional state. And that emotional state, however you label it, drives the behavior that you're going to have. The other way that you start to feel things is your physiology. Your body becomes your unconscious mind. You have a lot of trained responses. You have a lot of anchors for the people in your life. So you see someone, and let's say it's your partner who you really love. When you see them, you have a physiological response to them. You've trained that. Or your child. See them, anchored, triggers a physiological response that's going to create an emotional state that, again, is going to drive the behavior. If you don't catch yourself in the physiology, your body becomes so addicted to the thoughts that you've served it that it will start to serve up the feelings before you even have the thought, because it's used to it by now. Your brain is an artifact of the past. Safety is what's familiar. Is what's familiar always good for you? I'm going to venture to say no. So if you don't catch yourself that that's what's happening, you're just going to live in a lot of unconscious patterns and behaviors in your life. When I mentioned that your unconscious mind wants to keep you whole, this is basically your unconscious mind's job description. It wants to serve you. It's keeping all of your autonomic systems running, your breathing, your digesting, your brain function, all of these things. It also stores and organizes all of your memories. And it's working in a way, you can see the bottom left bullet is it does not process negatives. So every time I work with a client, I hear in their languaging, because that shows me how they're encoding behaviors and patterns based on the way that they're speaking and conveying it to me, that they'll say, well, I don't want this anymore and I don't want to feel like that. Okay, your unconscious mind does not process negatives, which means that what your unconscious mind hears every time you say, I don't want this, I don't want that, it's thinking, oh, well, she does want this, or she does want that. So then I encourage clients to say, okay, if you don't want that, what's the opposite of that? What is it that you do want? I don't want to feel anxious anymore. Well, what do you want to feel? I want to feel at peace and I want to feel confident. Great. Let's use that. We want to start shifting your languaging, your internal self-talk, and even whatever you're expressing out there in the world from the away from motivation to the towards motivation. The towards motivation will always drive your behavior longer than your away from motivation. And the example that I often give is, let's say, this is a great example. It's like New Year's, when people make New Year's resolutions and then they want to get healthier, they want to get more fit, or they want to lose weight. Okay. So usually it starts as, I don't feel good in my body anymore. I don't want to feel like this. And so you start to engage in the behaviors that will help you not feel like this anymore. You'll eat healthier, you'll work out more. Okay. Well, you get over here, and then all of a sudden you kind of forget why you started in the first place, because you moved away from motivation. So then you kind of start to backslide. Oh, shoot. Now I remember, I don't want to feel like this. And then you start to go like this. This is where yo-yo dieting happens. Over here on the other side, instead of I don't want to feel uncomfortable in my body anymore, well, what if I'm curious about how strong can I get? Can I do that triathlon? Can I run that marathon? Well, then that's a toward motivation. So then you start over here. You start working out, you start eating healthy, you do your training regimen. And guess what? The closer that you get to the goal, the more and more motivated you become to try to get that goal. It's a toward motivation. We always want to shift what it is, this dialogue that you're having, towards what it is that you want. And the easiest way to do that is notice your recurring thoughts. If they're limiting beliefs, if they're anything like that, what is the opposite of that? Then that's what you actually want. And there's an exercise that I take clients through to help you start to keep moving in that toward motivation. These are the 6 key areas of life that I focus on. Most people come to me for career. And if you're a founder and entrepreneur, your career is very entwined with, your identity, with who you are, why you started this in the first place. You have different core values in each of these key areas of life. Your unconscious mind does not operate beyond the top 5, maybe 6 core values. And guess what? Every single time I take a client through a values exercise, what you believe your values are and what your unconscious mind believes that your values are very different. So your conscious mind is the captain of the ship. Your unconscious mind is the crew. If you're not seeing results in your life, it's because your crew has a different manifest than the one that the captain is operating from. And you want to get clear on what that is. How does release work actually happen? This is the most fun part because it happens so fast. And once I show you how to do it, you know how to do it. You can take this and off to the races. So your future is built from the past. And basically, your memories are stored in your unconscious mind on a timeline. You've attached emotions to those memories. And along the way, some blueprint formed about whatever your beliefs are about yourself. They're usually one of 3 key things: safety, value, or power. From a very young age, or a significant emotional event happened, it caused you to update the code, because the stronger the emotion is, the more your brain is going to pay attention, the more it's going to hardwire and encode that. And then, so you now have a blueprint of how you believe the world is, how safe it is. You have a blueprint for how valuable you think you are. You have a blueprint for how powerful you think that you are in the world. Well, you're going to keep taking this blueprint and building your life on this blueprint. It's sequenced in a timeline. When you're feeling very charged about something, you feel like you're in the middle of the emotion. Emotions, they can't last forever in a high peak state. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's going to recycle, it's going to keep going around, but it doesn't stay here at this peak state forever. There's a start and a finish. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the charge, the stronger your brain is going to remember it. When you're in a charged state, you're in the middle of the sentence. The picture that you have in your brain is so close to you. It feels so intense because your brain is encoding it in that way. And so I help your brain move before that programmed blueprint, after the programmed blueprint. I show you from different perspectives how to move before the sentence ever started, after the period of the sentence. Your brain can then reassociate itself with the memory, and it can see what it needs to learn because it's doing it with the awareness that you have now, the consciousness that you have now. So every single time that you recall a memory, you're not looking at a Polaroid picture, you're looking at a video that's constantly being edited. So your memories are not 100% accurate based on what it is that happened. You keep adding to it because of who you are now, how you see the world now. Everything continues to evolve and shift. We just don't realize we're doing that. And I show you how to do that in a way that actually works for you rather than against you. Your brain only updates the code at certain times. It only updates it if you're very present in the moment, if it's unexpected, and if the emotions are very, very strong. So what fulfills those requirements? Trauma. Trauma usually happens unexpectedly. The loss of someone, a car accident, something like that. It's when you're forced to be very present in the moment because you have to handle whatever's happening there. And the emotions can be very high. So that is when your brain says, oh, I see, I need to update the code right now. So whatever it is your brain has stored as on a certain timeline. And when I get you to move before the start of that sentence so that you're looking at it from a different vantage point, your brain can say, oh, I see. Oh, I see what's happened. I see what I was supposed to learn in that moment. I can release the charge because now I'm before any of it ever happened. I can see it in front of me. And when your brain sees it in that way, it starts to reorganize things to serve you now. Anxiety is a future worry. So I can actually move your perception to the future, looking back to now, past the successful completion of whatever it is that you are worried about. Every time I take a client through this exercise, very rapidly, they start laughing because they realize, oh, I don't really have anything to worry about. You get back to the calm, neutral space where you can access your greater wisdom, all of your resources. All of your experiences are organized by a gestalt. There was an origin of a pattern. So your brain basically has all of these constellations of events. It's not like it's seeing individual events. It's like, oh, that seems similar to this pattern. I'm just going to group it over here. So when I work with clients, I find that root cause where all of this grouping is. I help you release that. And then you can release all of these things in an instant. So clients, I take you through it to check on the charge that you feel. And clients will often tell me like, oh, I can remember the memory, but I have no feeling about it whatsoever. Whereas just 5 minutes ago, it was bringing them to tears. Or I'm having a hard time even remembering the memory now because you processed it and you went through it. And so I often say, celebrate when your baggage comes up. It means that your unconscious mind knows that it's ready to be released. And just similar to if you think about Christmas lights, each of the individual lights being different emotional events that have happened, if you unplug the first light, it can impact all of the other chain. But what I do actually is I help you go to the wall and I unplug that whole charge from the wall. And then everything dissipates. You can wind up the lights, put it away. You don't need it. So most people think that you have to address each individual event. So I was a client of traditional cognitive behavioral therapy for decades, and it felt like a slog a lot of the time because we're addressing individual events. I actually train a client who is a Harvard trained therapist. She has a very successful practice in New York. And she says, we learned about the subconscious or the unconscious mind, but no one ever showed us how to access it. And you're showing me how I can access it and how I can utilize this with my clients. So I help you at all of the points in such a profound, like pulling on the biggest levers in so many different ways that this is how people experience significant transformation in a very short amount of time. People often tell me that's like 10 years of therapy in a couple of hours. You're not just processing one memory, I'm removing the whole chain of memories or helping you get it to neutral and also helping you to see things that you didn't necessarily see before because again, you've edited the memory so many times. The thing that I often say is, if you can help your unconscious mind remove the emotional charge, guess what happens? If you can remember a memory without the emotional charge, that's wisdom. You will be able to see what you gleaned from that situation, how it built you, how you became who you are because of it. We, again, go to the root cause event where so many things are stored. We rewrite that blueprint, we update the code. And then afterwards, you reorganize your entire reality based on what you know now, who you are now, not you carrying all of that baggage with you. I also like to help people understand a limiting belief is basically something happened in your life. It challenged your safety, your value, or your power. You made a decision about yourself or about the world or about other people in that moment. And then that became the belief that you carried out into now, into the future until you disrupt that pattern. So anytime you have a limiting belief, I want you to start looking at what was the decision that was made before the limiting belief, before you carried that. So was it a decision you made about your safety, your value, your power? And then that became the belief that you carry. The other thing that I want to say is a lot of people feel very empty after going after all of the things they think they wanted. there's this idea that, well, I want to have the nice car, the title, the money in the bank, all of that kind of stuff. What do I need to do to have those things? Well, then this was the last thing that you focused on. Who am I being? So I flip that for you so you can feel so much more satisfied in your journey, that you can ask, who am I being? That's the identity level work. What do I need to do to become this person? Well, if you figure that out, no matter what it is that you're doing, you're going to feel fulfilled because you're always doing the things that are helping you to become who you want to be. And then this having is a natural extension of doing the things for you to be who you want to be, do what you want to do, and have what you want to have. So we're getting ready to close. And one of the things that have happened recently that I've seen, and usually when I work with clients, it's like if I have back-to-back calls, I can see the same theme appearing with each person. Totally different walks of life, totally different stages of their lives or their businesses, but it's the same thing. And so once I start noticing those patterns, I want to bring it, to the other people who I'm working with, because we're all interconnected in this superposition in the quantum field. And so I'm going to start to share and preemptively help other people with that. But what I see oftentimes is people forget that you want to be on the cause side of the equation rather than the effect side of the equation. And what does that mean? Life is going to life. It's going to keep lifing. You can't control all of the external things, but what you can control is your thoughts and your feelings and reactions to it. So you may not be responsible for your first thought, but you are responsible for your next one. Being at cause means being responsible for taking action on you and who you want to be, what you want to do, and what you want to have. You will always be able to create change on this side of the equation. You will not be able to be the master of the universe and change everything else and everyone else. But guess what? When you do it on the inside, it happens on the outside. So there's something called the observer effect in quantum physics. And there's actually a screen here. I'll show it to you shortly. But it's basically that the external world is waiting for your cue to show up. And science continues to see that everything exists in infinite possibilities until there is an observer who looks at the atoms and the molecules, which is what our entire external world is made up of. So the second there's a consciousness that's observing it, the external world reorganizes itself based on the observer. It is waiting for you to determine how you want this external world to look. And then it will start reorganizing itself to show up based on your lens. Remember, we're not experiencing reality. We're experiencing the picture in our minds. Guess what? Being at cause, you can adjust that picture and then you can impact your whole external reality. Again, I mentioned that we have strategies for everything that we do in our lives. The strategies often formed when we were very young, but it impacts everything. So I just want that to be something for you to see that you can remove the judgment from. It's just a strategy you learned at some point. You can update the strategy. I posted this recently on social media. We talk a lot about post-traumatic stress. We don't often talk about post-traumatic growth. So post-traumatic growth happens because of the thing that you thought could have broken you, the really difficult experience. This is quantifiable research that if you can look at the growth opportunity, you will have this different appreciation for life, experience deeper relationships, have a stronger sense of your own strength. You're going to see different possibilities, and you're going to find a shift in what's meaningful. Resilience is returning back to baseline. Post-traumatic growth is reaching a new level of functioning. So see the things that have happened in your life as helping you to get to that new identity. Again, before in identity level work is I get anxious in situations like this. After releasing the blueprint, it's, well, actually there's no pattern anymore here. There's no operating system that runs on that that pattern. And so it's not going to generate the same anxiety. Everything that I talk about with clients is that there's just 4 basic requirements for change. 1, get rid of the baggage. 2, know what you want and create that future and start practicing in your unconscious mind, living it as if now. 3, take purposeful action. And then 4, Stay focused on what it is that you want. Even when life lifes, be a cause and stay focused. So that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, you can type it in the chat or you can come off a video. I am super grateful and excited that you're here. I hope that you got a lot out of it. I know that there was a lot of information. So different things hit for different people in different ways. And just take, when I used to teach yoga, I always used to say, take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And you might come back to it and try it differently. You're going to, again, be a different consciousness each and every time as you continue to evolve. So things may work differently as you continue to grow. If you want to dive into this deeper, my group cohort that has an amazing group of people right now is launching on July 13th. It's going to be 5 sessions and we get to build upon all of this stuff. If you have any other questions and you want to keep learning more, I will keep sharing it in the school community. There's going to be much more things that are coming. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and I am going to stop recording.